James, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Van.
Great to have you here. I'm excited to unpack the last several years of your journey and find out a bit more about what you're up to now, because been following some of your content on LinkedIn recently. It looks like you're in build mode.
I am in build mode, yeah. Keen to unpack it. I've been reflecting on all the questions that you've sort of given me, and it's been interesting to sort of reflect on the journey as well as part of this process.
Well, let's start at the beginning of the journey, and way before even Salesforce. If we look back at kind of your early career roles and what you had initially planned to do, what was your kind of aspirations when you were starting out your career?
Yeah, so I actually started my career, well, I've always been a nerd, so I gravitated to IT things. As soon as I left school, I started an engineering degree, and it didn't take me very long to realize that wasn't for me. So yeah, through some soul searching and some time off between degrees, I eventually found myself doing IT and an IT degree at Monash, which is where more importantly than the degree, I'd say I was given the opportunity to do some work placements at Incitec Pivot and GE Capital, which really gave me like the lessons that I needed to join the workplace. And I also ended up getting jobs out of the back of those placements. So at Incitec Pivot as a consultant, just doing IT support work, and then later at GE getting a graduate role, which is where I got to really broaden the work that I was doing and get a lot of opportunities to grow early on. And yeah, at GE, I really drank the Kool-Aid there for a while, which was awesome, like taking up all the opportunities that came available there. And that's actually where I first was exposed to Salesforce. One of my placements there was in the Asia Pacific commercial team where we owned the Salesforce CRM, and my job was being the BA and later PM for those rollouts to all of the different businesses in the APAC region. So I didn't know it at the time, but that was sort of almost my first exposure to consulting as well.
So you were obviously internal at GE, rolling out Salesforce in the capacity of BA and PM. Were you using a partner as well, or was that all being delivered in-house?
That was in-house, but I did end up doing a project for the money team, which was sort of now the Latitude brand. So everyone would probably know the Latitude brand, and previously the GE Money brand. We were building a personal loans originations platform, which was pretty revolutionary for the time. This is around 2010. And that was where I was first exposed to a consulting partner, and I was working with Cloud Sherpas. And that's where I met Cam and the team from Cloud Sherpas and started sort of being friendly with them, and later on ended up working for them. At that time as well, GE was going through a bit. So GE made the decision to divest capital globally from their organization. So that meant that like anyone in GE Capital jobs were either going to be like removed or they'll go to a new parent company. So it was uncertainty in the air. But I kind of forgot this, but going through this process and preparing for this podcast, Ben, I was reminded that my boss and mentor at the time, Brett Ferguson, actually sat me down and wanted to know if I was interested in starting a consulting company with him at the time. But I said no to him because I just didn't have the confidence at that time. I was really early in my career and hadn't actually been a consultant. So I didn't have that sort of grounding or background to give me the confidence to start something there. So instead, I got sort of a tap on the shoulder from Cloud Sherpas, and I started there as a senior consultant, which is where I was first exposed to sort of doing consulting work and being a functional consultant and being going through rotations and changing teams and all that kind of stuff.
So what do you know what that consultancy would have been? It wouldn't have been a Salesforce business?
It would have been a Salesforce consulting.
Oh, it would have. Okay, yeah, interesting. So you again, at that point, you'd only worked at GE in a Salesforce capacity as a BA and PM. So had you done any hands-on work? Like, had you been more kind of business-facing than actually in?
Yeah, more business-facing, and I'd done my admin cert and things like that. But yeah, not much. It was really a Cloud Sherpas, which I started to learn what was involved in being a proper Salesforce functional consultant, learning the platform more deeply than just what we were doing at GE.
Can you remember those early days of consulting and maybe like a couple of lessons that you learned early on that kind of set you up for success in consulting?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So, well, in Cloud Sherpas, I think the lesson learned was how to be a consultant, being dropped in the deep end, like learning the platform, learning the required skill set that you needed to do the job. And then I later started at System Partners, which had a slightly different philosophy. They actually sold a process and like a methodology that to deliver the outcomes. And so that gave me that different perspective on consulting, and that wasn't just relying on the consultant. You could also rely on the process of the consulting company. So that was good to see how two different SIs handled the same thing.
And just on that, then, on that point of like selling a process, some people won't kind of get that, I guess, from like how that differs from your typical selling a delivery of a project. What was different about System Partners back then that was perhaps maybe different from the norm in the market?
They sold their blueprint process as sort of like a packaged up offering, and that was a really well-defined process where the consultants would follow it, and they would have standard documentation, standard toll gates. And it was just sort of, it was standard like system development lifecycle stuff focused on that sort of workshopping and designing. But because it was done prescriptively and the consultants were all aligned on how it was to be done, it meant that the customer got a really strong architecture and blueprint for their future Salesforce environment. So yeah, that was like Barry Cunningham's concoction as far as I am aware. And Chris Nugent actually was my mentor in that company. He taught me how that runs, and then I learned a lot from Chris during that time at System Partners.
Yeah, Chris has been a guest on the podcast a couple of times. The first time was very much around like consulting and like that really importance of business consulting, like the soft skills. When you made that move from customer side into consulting, obviously you had to learn more about the platform, because obviously every customer is going to be different, from GE having a set of products they're using to the next place you could have gone could have been a gambling company, or anything where they're using different products. So how did you find not just that part, learning the platform, but actually learning how to consult? Was there, because there's no like textbook, right? There's no, right, this is go and do this course in consulting and come back and you'll be a consultant. There really isn't anything like that. So how do you make that leap from being a BA in a customer to being a good consultant?
This is a really good question. Well, I think there's, so in the Salesforce world, there's two main skills for a functional consultant. So there's obviously platform knowledge and ability to build something. But then, and probably the more important, is the core consultancy skill set. And I think what's important to learn that is practice and mentorship, because ultimately it comes down to running a workshop, communicating with your clients, listening to the clients, and storing that information that you're gathering somewhere. And if it's an intense process, right? So you got to do lots of preparation to make sure you know what you want to get. And then there's the process of running the workshop where you're asking questions and then making sure everyone's engaged, responding, you're getting the information you want. Sometimes you got to actually facilitate and handle awkward situations, because maybe not everyone in the room wants to be there. So ultimately it comes down to practice. Like you got to run your good ones, your bad ones, and get good at it. Yeah. And then having a mentor helps. Like when I had Chris back at System Partners, I learned a lot about the preparation and the post work. He's an expert facilitator. So it's like you get to watch someone do it well. And then, if you're given a chance and you get to, practice yourself, break a leg, whatever.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, Chris would have been a great guy to learn from. I can imagine his workshops are pretty well run.
Yeah, they are, definitely. He's very good.
So you then went on to set up your own consulting business after only having 2 years of consulting experience yourself, which I mean is amazing. But also, like, a lot of people would have seen that as risky, right? Because it's often you think someone that would go out and set up their own business has been doing it for years and years and years. What gave you the confidence to do that? But also, how did it all come together?
Yeah, so towards the end of my time at Cloud Sherpas, I did a project with Ian Goodwin, who was their head of advisory, who would later be my co-founder with Luke Sevior at Cluedo. So that placement was like, I was just a senior consultant 9 months in, but that they were short of resources, and that placement with Ian on that project for Uni Super was for a solution architect. So I was kind of like dropped in the deep end. You do this work with Ian. And so, and then we did a really good job, got a good outcome for that project. So one, like having that success was like reassuring. And then later down the line after Cloud Sherpas was sort of announced that they were going to be sold to Accenture, and I made the decision to not really stick around for that transition, and I wanted to try system partners because I knew Ed and some of the team members there. Yeah, so I made that transition, and then Ian gave me a phone call one day and said he had an opportunity to respond to a piece of work, and would I be interested in joining him to start a business and respond to that work. So having him ask me gave me the confidence that maybe I had, even though I was young. I think I was only 29 at the time, like living in a share house. Him asking me gave me the confidence that maybe I had something to bring to the table. But I did say that we needed a third founder because Ian had the commercial covered, I had the solutions and workshopping covered, and I thought to be able to fully round out the team, we needed a technical architect. So that's where I hit Luke up, who I was catching up with regularly, still post the Cloud Sherpas sale to Accenture, and he was also interested in joining.
So he was Sherpas, Luke was Sherpas as well, all three of you?
Yeah, we're all Sherpas, but then we all did our own things. He stayed on. Ian went and did some consultings elsewhere. I went to system partners. And then, about almost like a year later, we started Cluedo in 2016. We responded to that deal that was sort of the point of creating the company, but we didn't win it, but we had a business. So now we had something to work with. So we chipped away, and eventually we won a very small deal, like $30K. That was enough for us to stop what we were doing and focus on that.
Yeah, nice. And in those early days, like you said, you probably had less responsibilities, less overheads back then. But did you know, like, as soon as you won that $30K piece of work, did you know it was the right move? And also, was it very clear very quickly that the three of you were going to work well together?
Yeah, so we all, that was clear. That we would work well together. We always got along well, and because our skills were from different domains, it was very clear what each of us would be doing. But it was slow going in first to start the business. So like 9 months had passed, and we'd done like 2 projects. So it's not enough to sustain us really. But what we did do is use that time wisely, and we responded to requests. We built our systems. We defined our methodology. I think one of the good things that any new SIs out there could do, even if they don't have like the confidence yet to respond to tenders, is like pick a tender that's like public or whatever, and go through the process of responding to it. Like we did a few of these in our early days, and just by going through that process, you've got all those questions being asked of you, so you get to like think about who you are, why, what you focused on, how you do it, why you like. There's all these questions that are being asked of you that are really critical to have fleshed out as early as possible when you're starting your business. So we've just going through that process, responding to things helped us build our repository of, and catalog of information about our business and how we'd approach things. So early days, we built our methodology, our systems, responded to lots of work. Eventually we were pretty fortunate that like 9 months in, we landed a whale. So that we landed LGIA Super, a CRM transformation project up in Brisbane. So Luke and I, we moved to Brisbane for like 8 months and did a bit of fly in, fly out to deliver that project. And that one ended up being like a $1 million plus piece of work for us, enabled us to really set the business up, start hiring people. But I said it was like fortunate. We found out like years after the fact that we only won it by 2 points on their evaluation spreadsheet. So, you never really know like who when those evaluations are happening. Like it's kind of arbitrary, right? And the score sheet's like high, low, medium, and that converts into a number. Well, it's like 2 points, and they could have gone a completely different direction, and our business might not have ever, launched the way it did.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was a pretty pivotal thing then. Like, had you not won that 9 months in, 2 deals, like it probably, it could have gone a very different route.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, like I was young, I had savings, so I could sustain myself for a while, but eventually need to earn money from the work you're doing.
Yeah. And then talk to me a little bit about the acquisition process, because obviously Cluedo was acquired. What kind of numbers did you get to pre-acquisition in terms of headcount? What was that whole journey like? Because I've spoken to other people who have been through acquisitions before, and it kind of seems to take quite a long time. You have to get the right fit right between the company that they're acquiring and the company that's being acquired from a culture perspective as best as possible. So how did that look for you?
Yeah. What we did early on in the process is Luke, Ian, and I actually agreed on where the business needed to get to, what we wanted out of the business. So we all agreed early on that we wanted to sell the business and grow it to a certain point, and then we all agreed on what that target would be and what was like the minimum that we would want to get it to. And so that, by agreeing on that early, meant that it made subsequent encounters with businesses that were knocking on the door easier to manage. So yeah, we were getting knocks on the door pretty regularly at Cluedo, probably one or two a year throughout our relatively short lifespan. But it was important to say yes and go through the process, even if you weren't that interested, just to learn. Well, this is for us, at least at the time, we'd never done anything like it before. So just by saying yes and making sure you've got the capacity to sort of entertain and discuss things with the business that wants to purchase, it meant that you get to learn your value, why would they want to buy you? And then you get to learn the process, what kind of questions they're going to ask, how they're going to value you, get to practice your pitch, get everything in order. Well, one piece of advice I actually got from Barrett Cunningham throughout the journey was that it's important to have your information memorandum set up as early as possible. Even if you're not actively on the market, if you just set up an information memorandum, go through the process of setting up some slides, filling it in based on a standard template, and there's heaps of templates out there that you can follow, then you get to understand your value, why someone would buy you, potential gaps that you have in your organization. It kind of goes back to that tender point I was making before about being prepared and understanding who you are. Then by just going through that process of having an IM set up, it meant that when we did have a knock on the door, we were ready, quick to respond, which means you look organized. So that's a good first signal that you can send out the door. And yeah, it's about sort of being prepared as well, because quite often, a lot of the time, you sort of doing things when you're a founder of a business and you've not done it before, then everything is new.
Yeah, and when you're trying to do it at the same time of running projects and hiring staff and things like that, it's I can only imagine how hectic that would get. What do you think made Cluedo a target for acquisition? If you were getting lots of interest, what was it that made the business special and valuable to these businesses?
Yeah, so eventually Visio knocked on the door and they were going through a process and spoke to many Australian businesses. I think what made us special is we had a good culture, a good team of people. We delivered reliably for our projects. We're probably on the more expensive side because we had a fully local team, but we delivered our projects to a high standard. And we had a good process to follow as well. It wasn't as heavy as the system partners process, but there was a process that our consultant followed that would ensure that we could get to build as quickly as possible, but also making sure it aligns with customer requirements. So I think, and we also were focused. So we had our primary industries that we were focused on, which means we had good stories to tell in each of those places. The primary one we did was in financial services. Ultimately, when someone's looking to buy you, I think they're looking at trust and the numbers, right? So do they trust the people, and do they like the numbers, and do they see potential in the numbers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And what was the time frame between starting the business and acquisition, and then what did you get to in headcount in that time?
Yeah, so we started in 2016, and Visio purchased us in 2020, and then we had a 3-year integration. Yes, it started with 3 people, and then I think we grew that at the height. I think it was back around 50 headcount. And then during the acquisition period, Visio decided to purchase the Carnat Group as well.
Yep.
And Vincent still leads Visio today. They're doing a fantastic job. I think the business now is 70 plus headcount.
Yeah, well, and do you remember the process of like agreeing a fee, like, and the moment from agreeing it to it being finalized, and like, was that a nervy process? Like, were you pretty calm that it would all go through? Were you comfortable and assured that you'd done everything as best as you could, and that it was just plain sailing, or were you at sleepless nights until that money hit the bank account?
uh, yeah, sleepless nights, right? So yeah, until everything's locked and loaded, I think you just don't know if it's actually going to go through. So it was a pretty stressful time. The actual, like, being selected for due diligence and going through the due diligence process, and then going through the legal process. Yeah, it was stressful, but and then the added stress on top of that was the actual earn out and integration. So as soon as we did make the announcement, we got a funny reaction from our team, especially some of the team members who joined us early on. So that there was a sense of betrayal, and this
Really?
was in the pandemic, so everyone was split and working from home, and then we sold the business, and yeah, there was essentially betrayal from a lot of the early people that had joined. Plus, it was a hot jobs market, so people just had to sort of look out the door, and they could probably earn another 20K just by moving jobs.
Mm. Yeah, and I guess you'd been on the other side of that, right? Like you said, when you were acquired at Sherpas, you didn't want to stick around for Accenture, so you kind of can empathize with the situation of an acquisition. So
Yep.
it's you can see both sides of it, but obviously, yeah, through that earnout process, you've got to get to certain numbers, right, to hit the earnout figures that you're targeting.
Yeah, so it wasn't. Yeah, I could definitely relate and understand why people were leaving, but yeah, it was stressful because, like, you've got your new owners, and now they're asking you questions. Why is everyone leaving? And but
Yeah.
we were right the ship. It was okay in the end. Yeah.
So what did you want to do, like post acquisition, and after the earnout? Was there any plan to start another consulting business, like potentially stick around longer? Like what was your plan at that point, and why? I guess a lot of people, when they've out of that period, they'll go and start another professional services business straight away with the plan of doing it again. So was that ever something that could cross your mind?
No, no. I think the constant push and pull and the integration, been 3 years, was kind of a long process. I think wasn't very interested in doing it again. Certainly not being like a key player. Still like consulting and doing things like that, but wasn't really interested in starting another consulting business. Plus, wasn't really allowed to for a good period of time. So it's needed to do something in that period. Throughout the process, right, of the 3 years, I think, because the 3 years is a long time, I self deluded myself that I would stick around and work at Visio. I sort of helped run through that amount of time that you'd stick around, and it was only in the sort of last few months that I think I realised I needed to do something different. Um, and I was always interested in, like, I always still love Salesforce development. So I thought Salesforce product development was a nice something different, but also something the same.
Mhm.
And that's where I um, engaged one of the contractors that I'd worked with at Cluedo to see if he was interested in starting a product business where we would build a professional services platform, which is what I'm working on now, Day One Software.
Yeah, so tell me a bit about that, because obviously you're building a product, I guess, that you could have been a customer for back in the day when you were starting Cluedo. Is that what you realized at Cluedo? Like there's a gap in the market for this, and that kind of stayed with you throughout, that led into Day One Software?
Yeah, so I remember, like, at System Partners is probably where, like, the idea first came to mind. Seeing, I think it was Mike Robinson at the time, writing statements of work in Microsoft Word when we had a Salesforce org with Conga integrated. I asked him, like, what are you, like, why are you writing this? And why are you explaining to me that you're going to be writing it till 9 p.m. that night? And when we've got, like, a Salesforce org with all the ingredients that can be used to spit out these docs for you. And he didn't know. But anyway, and then that sort of stuck with me in my mind as, like, you can get a lot out of Salesforce, but why isn't anyone doing it? So
Mhm.
then at Cluedo, we built our own system, which we call Clued In. And that's sort of the prototype of what a lot of the ideas that are in Day One sort of it was a testing ground. What it did was it had a catalog of, like, work that you did, and it allowed you to construct a contract, and then deliver on that contract and do the invoicing. So that's the sort of the value chain, and it allowed us to be really efficient in how we operated at Cluedo. Yeah, so that's sort of the seed of the idea of that led to day one. And sort of in terms of gap in the market, though, like, it's a very flooded market, professional services software. So there's PSA softwares, but a lot of them are sort of enterprise grade. So they're very expensive to adopt for most consulting companies. And then there's a raft of siloed apps. So there's lots of proposal apps, and then there's lots of project execution apps, and then there's lots of, timesheet apps, and then invoice generators. And what we're trying to do is give the mid-market of consulting companies a platform to run their business with all the tools that they need. That's easy to adopt, easy to run, easy to use, and allows you to sort of ditch a lot of those siloed apps and unify, on a common operating ground.
Yeah, nice. And when you built the Clued In app, there was there obviously was still AI, but not to the level that we're seeing now. So building in this market with AI seemingly everywhere, and new tools popping up, new capabilities, how have you been able to leverage that in getting this business off the ground?
Yeah, so I think Day One's sort of been almost 2 years in the making now. So in the first year or so, I'd say like AI was still in its early days, and we were just using it for things like copy paste text, generate things, helping us with blog posts, emails, that kind of stuff. Though, and then I'd say like in this year we made the leap into actual coding with it and using it in the IDE. It's been great. We've been gaining confidence in what it's capable of and how to get the most out of it. So what it's been able to do there is like help us plug our gaps and get more out of our team. So we're kind of getting greater throughput and better quality in some areas than we would without it. So things like helping clean up some front end stuff. So my team's not necessarily the best in the UI development space. So it is able to help there. It can do lots of quality in terms of test class coverage and helps hunting for bugs. So if you just sort of give it a class or a flow and say like find a bug or find the bug that's doing this, it can sort of help find those kind of things for you and speed that process up. Helps documenting. I've done a lot of documentation. You can comment your code. You can produce a document out of it. We've even been building new stuff with it, new components. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've been vibe coding yourself, right? And you're not a developer. Your role in Salesforce was functional consulting and solution architecture, right? And delivery management. So how have you found that part? And have you learned anything because a lot of people are looking to kind of move into that vibe coding world. Have there been any lessons for you that you'd share?
Yeah, I've written 8 lessons I wrote down as sort of preparing for this one because I have been doing it. And it's probably important to note that I've been vibe coding for like Salesforce stuff to learn what can be done in that space. And then I've been learning on side projects as well. So to sort of get a feel for what it's capable of. And I feel like it's a new technology tool. So you need to be across what it's capable of doing. Otherwise you slowly get left behind. From the Salesforce side of things, because I'm not a developer, it's important that you have a developer with you who's like across what you're building so that, they can check the work that's done, that's output, make sure it's the right standards. There's no conflicting things, etc. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that you can do with it, especially if you're familiar with the platform. So yeah, I can go through the lessons if you're interested.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that'd be useful.
So the first one I'd say is that the output is only as good as what you feed into it. So because I have a good Salesforce background, I'm getting good output from it because I'm able to instruct it, and I know Salesforce. I'm asking it clearly things that I want, right? And I can troubleshoot and I can tell it when it's going down the wrong path. So I'm getting good stuff because I know Salesforce. I've been side projects wise, I've been doing stuff in other technologies like Python that I'm not as familiar with, and I'm not getting anywhere near as good output from that because I don't know as much, right? So my architecture isn't as strong. It can make mistakes and then it needs to backpedal. And anyway, you can spin your wheels. So if you don't know what you're doing from a technology point of view, you're going to find yourself spinning your wheels. So the key takeaway there is know what you're working with, know the platform before you start relying on these tools. Otherwise, you're just going to end up wasting a lot of time.
Yeah.
So the second thing I reckon is you have to think of the work that AI is doing the same as a team of people, and whereas you're the boss. So you can break down the work in as instructional parts that go to different like models or team members. So each model that's out there has different strengths and weaknesses. And so you need to sort of know, the same way if you're running a team, know everyone's strengths and weaknesses. If you're building stuff with AI, know all the different models and their strengths and weaknesses. So for example, like Claude Code, that's the only tool that I've actually been using at the moment in November 2025 to actually write some code that you would run in a platform reliably. Then you've got ChatGPT's Codex, which is like not too far off, but it's good as like a pair advisor. It's good to start a project, but can't necessarily finish it. Then you've got Google's Gemini, which I would never let write code because it just gets confused, but it's got a good context window. So it could review like way more stuff than Claude and synthesize it, doing a good assessment, and then you can feed its output back into one of the other tools. So yeah, then you're sort of finding yourself using all the tools on the market, spending hundreds of dollars a month on AI tools. So
yeah, that's a challenge, right?
But anyway, I'm still early on in my process. Even though I've learned lots of lessons, I know you can automate a lot of this stuff and you could potentially string them all together. But yeah, so this is sort of where I'm at and what I've learned. So the next one is AI loves writing new stuff. So when you ask for new features, AI would like prefer to write a new feature than edit the existing framework and modify it because that's like harder for it to do. So just be aware of that. If you keep like asking for features, it's probably going to like add stuff on top of each other, and then all the legacy stuff is just left there, and you've got thousands of lines of code that's not being used.
Yeah.
Next lesson is the 80-20 rule. So I'd say 80% of the work will be written and done really fast, but then that last 20% will take 80% of the time, and you may actually never get to 100%. So I kind of think AI development can be the infinite staircase. So you got to align your thinking that you can get to like 90%, 95%, and that's maybe all that you can do. Because 100%, like to get that last bit done, like if it's not capable or if it's not a clear thing for the model to do,
So I guess that's where like knowing the platform comes back in, because you can pick up that last 5% and do it yourself and tweak it and make it like properly fit for purpose. Whereas someone that's trying to outsource this work without knowing the fundamentals themselves is potentially going to end up with gaps because they don't know that it's only 95%.
Exactly. The next lesson would be that like in the current setup, don't think that AI is like replacing anyone in your team. Let it enable your team as a new tool. So let it plug your gaps, not replace anything. Probably like look at your existing team and then figure out what everyone's strengths and weaknesses in that team, and then think about if AI can plug any of those gaps and like if the tool set can be applied to them. So like I mentioned before, we've got a strong back-end developer, so AI can be used to increase their front-end development skills, things like that. So the next lesson I'd say is that ideas are the new currency. So previously, like to be like a strong consultant or strong player in an industry, you'd have to have like good core technical skills and then good core consulting skills or business skills. So in this new world, I reckon ideas are the most valuable things to bring to the table, especially for consulting. So what that means is like you can spend less time now on documenting and technical implementation, but more time to be deeper in the industry knowledge, deeper in architectural knowledge, and bringing ideas to the table to actually make better solutions or give better outcomes to your customers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And then, the next lesson I'm almost done is consulting companies consult. So I think there's a lot of like confusion at the moment around AI and consulting, but just because like anyone can now engage ChatGPT and get a like long report on a certain topic and can analyze emails and give you a strategy doc. But someone needs to actually implement that strategy or deliver on a change. And at the end of the day, consulting companies are engaged to plug a gap and whether it's technical skills or execution, right? So consulting companies need to consult, and they're going to be the ones to actually deliver on the strategies and deliver on the execution, not AI. AI is just going to produce lots of documents.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last lesson is that AI works with data. So you need a rock solid data model to feed the beast. Otherwise, it's just going to make it up. It's going to interpret things. It's just going to draw on its probabilities. So, for example, like at day one, we've got a good solid database of your proposals, your customers, your time cards, your invoices. So we're able to do things like generate the status reports, generate the invoice notes that go onto your invoice, generate internal status reports, draft the engagement letter. So these are all sort of core AI competencies that can be good when you've got good data to feed it.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it's funny because I wish my data was better. I've got so much, and so like salaries and all of this information that you construct over the years, but so much of that can change, and it's so like, and people's situation change so regularly that it's almost a full-time job just keeping on top of the data. But without doing that, like the suggestions, the information that AI is going to generate and provide, and the context that it has is so quickly out of date. It's a scary concept, right?
Yeah, it has. Well, when your data's unstructured, it is hard, but the tool sets now that you have available to you could help you structure it, like could help you go through your historical emails or files and whatever and pick parts apart,
Yes,
pick
true.
apart and structure it for you. But then how much time do you have to spend wielding the AI chatbot to make it work and give you something that's actually usable? And
Yeah, that's the key right now. It's the key recipe, right? But so tell me, what do the next few years look like for the business, and what kind of challenges are you going to have to overcome to get to where you want to be?
Yeah, so challenges for a new product business is getting to market, and so it's getting in front of customers, and it's telling our story, and it's finding the messages that resonate with consulting companies. So we're very early on our journey, but we've got a really strong product. We know that the customers that we do have rolled out to love it, and they're getting access to the insights and the information about their business that they never had before, saving them time. It's allowing them to get on with what they need to do, which is bill and deliver solutions for their customers. So the challenges that we have, though, are more broadly, finding customers, competing in the customer landscape, but then specific to day one, I think because that product is so broad that it covers a lot of aspects of a business, which means we need to talk to a lot of people. A lot of people have lots of opinions, and we need to communicate with them and bring them along the journey. And so what we have found is that we will do a demo, we get good buy-in, then there's a bit of a digestion period where like they'll either wait for a project to finish or wait for a quiet time, and then they'll call us up out of the blue and say, we're ready to go. So it's a bit of it. Yeah, it's just the challenge of a product business. But then I guess there's the standard ones like competition from the market, competition from AI, uncertainty in the market from AI and market conditions, and capacity of consulting teams to actually take on change and drive a new product into their business.
And do you see a consulting arm of your own business for implementations, or is it kind of because obviously Salesforce being configurable, it's going to be modified for each customer. So at this stage, I guess you're doing that yourself.
Yeah, so day one will help their customers install the product. It's pretty straightforward, and depending on sort of how the size of the business and how much data needs to be migrated, we generally think that a customer should be able to get up and running within 30 days from signing. We're pretty confident in that. But long term, we would like to partner with other Salesforce SIs to do the installation, so we can focus on the product and improve it, add features, and working closely with our customers on giving them the tools that they need to do their job. I think we always need to have our finger on the pulse and be doing some installations so we know what's actually happening in the real world. But long term, we'd like to be working with partners on that.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for unpacking all of that. It's really, really great to hear how you've kind of got to where you got to from a consulting perspective, and then obviously into this product world and the challenges you're facing. If anyone wants to reach out, pick your brains, ask any more about your business or also your journey, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, they can get me at my email address, which is james.keaney@dayone.software, or just find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No worries, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.